Hello, dear students. Topic is Echter-Ohelian International Trade Theory. What? Echter-Ohelian International Trade Theory. This theory is also known as modern theory of international trade. What? This theory is also known as modern theory of international trade. And this theory is also known as general equilibrium theory. What? General equilibrium theory of international trade. What? General equilibrium theory of international trade. And one more name to this theory is factor endowment theory. Factor endowment theory. Factor endowment theory. Echter-Ohelian theory, 2 by 2 by 2 model, modern theory of international trade, general equilibrium theory of international trade, and factor endowment theory. So these are all the same. These are all the alternative and substitute name to the alternative names are the alternative or other names to this Echter-Ohelian international trade theory. Okay, this theory is stated very late after Adam Smith and Ricardo. Okay, this theory is also known as the modern theory of international trade. Okay, so what is international trade? The exchange of goods, factors, and services across the international borders is called as international trade. The exchange of goods, factors, and services across the international borders is called as international trade. The trade among the different countries in the world is called as international trade. The trade among the different countries in the world is called international trade. No individual can survive himself. Even individuals, every individual depends on others for their needs and demands. Likewise, no country in the world can survive itself. Every country depends on other countries for the needs of the country's people, which lead to the international trade. So here, what is in general, if you see the no person, no individual in the society can sustain himself for the needs of him usually depends on others. Likewise, no country in the world can survive itself. Every country depends on other countries for the needs of the country's people, which led to international trade. See the next slide, content of this today's topic. Introduction, capital intensive, labor intensive, techniques, factors of production, viability of factors of production, and cost of production. If you see the introduction to this, very clear image, very clear slide, this is Echter-Ohelian. Both are proposed this theory. Both are belongs to the Sweden economists. According to Echter-Ohelian theory, the one condition for trade is that countries differ with respect to the availability of the factors of production. According to Echter-Ohelian theory, one conditions for trade is the countries differ with respect to the availability of the factors of production. See the next para. This theory focuses on the two most important factors, that is land and capital. What is that? Is land and capital. So this is about the introduction. Okay, so here the important focus is division of labor, specialization are the important focuses of Adam Smith. But when coming to this Echter-Ohelian international trade, this theory focuses on the two most important factors of production, that is land and capital. Land and capital. Okay. Next, what this theory states. What this theory states explains. Echter-Ohelian published the effect of foreign trade on distribution of income 1919. O'Helian published the effect of foreign trade on the distribution of income in the year 1990. O'Helian published international and international trade. It is prepared on the basis of Escher's 1933. 1933. You see, where 1919, where 1933, 20 plus around 13-14 years gap between these two concepts. So mingled and they stated this theory. Finally, Escher O'Helian presented in the form of two of authors. Finally, Escher O'Helian presented in the form of two theories. Escher O'Helian, which ideas with and predicts the pattern of trade. Two factors, prices equalization theorem, which deals with the effect of international trade on factor prices. Trade and factor prices. So what are the assumptions? Assumption is very, very important. This theory is known as 2 by 2 by 2 model. What? 2 by 2 by 2 model. Means 2 means 2 countries. 2 means 2 countries, India and Malaysia. 2 goods, capital intensive and labor intensive. 2 factors of production, that is land and capital. There is a perfect competition in both goods and countries. Factor freely mobile within the country and not in the world. 2 countries differ in the factor supply. There is no transportation cost. There are no trade restrictions. These are the important assumptions to this trade theory. Okay, so main base for the theory. So availability of factors of production is main base for the international trade according to the Escher-O'Helian theory. So Escher-O'Helian theory given importance to the availability of the factors of production. According to this theory, the availability of the factors of production, availability of the resources is cause for the international trade. Okay. So this can be understood how in generally all the countries in the world not possessed all the factors of production abundantly. All the countries in the world not have may not have possessed all the factors of productions abundantly. Some countries may possess more labor and some countries may possess more capital. You have to see. So this availability of the factors of production, and particularly according to Escher-O'Helian theory, the factors of productions are only the two, that is the labor and capital, labor and capital. So in case of these two capitals, all the this availability of these two factors of production may not availability abundantly in all the countries, may not available plenty in all the countries. So some countries may have some kind of factors of production abundantly, some countries may not have that much of factors of production abundantly. So this kind of variations or disparities we may see in all the countries. So this disparity, this availability of the factors of production is cause for the emerging the international trade according to the Escher-O'Helian. Next one, what theorem definition? What theorem and definition. A nation will export the commodity whose production requires the intensive use of nations relatively abundant. A nation will export the commodity whose production requires the intensive use of the nation's relatively abundant and cheap factor, and import the commodity whose production requires the intensive use of the nation relatively scarce and expensive factor. A nation will export the commodity whose production requires the intensive use of the nation's relatively abundant and the cheap factor, and import the commodity whose production requires the intensive use of the nation's relatively scarce and expensive factor, or the relative labor rich nation export the relatively labor intensive commodity and import the relatively capital intensive commodity. Import the capital intensive commodity. So here what is, a nation will export the commodity whose production requires the intensive use of nation are relatively abundant and chief factor. Okay, so some countries may possess some facts of production is very largely, very plenty. Okay, facts of production, which factor is available in your country very abundantly? Which factor is available abundantly in your country? Both may not available plenty, both may not available abundant, but one factor may available very much, is it? So with the help of that factors of production, that resources, that input, that country should use that factors of production in the process of production. In the process of production. For example, if countries have a labor very much, that country should use the laborers in the process of production and should produce the labor intensive good. Should produce the labor intensive good. Another country is there where capital is available very much. Is it? Where capital is available very much. So that country is better to use the capital in the process of production. Machineries in the process of production. So the good which is produced with the help of the capital machineries technology is known as capital intensive good. Capital intensive good. So the techniques of the production is depends upon the availability of the facts of production here according to this theory. Okay, if in your country if availability of the labor is very much, so that labor is available very cheaply in your country, is it? So you should use the labor in the process of production, produce the labor intensive good and export to the other country. At the same time, the good which is produced in other country, that should be imported by the country. The good which is availability of that good is very, where the facts of production is very less available in the country. So this is what we can understand very clearly in the next slide about this. Okay, so factor ratios, you have to see to go to the deep discussion about this, about the about the today lesson. What is two countries A and B, A India, B USA. Availability of the labor in India is abundant and availability of the capital is scarcity. In USA, capital is abundant and availability of labor is scarcity. Capital is abundant and availability of labor is scarcity. Factors, fiscal ratio is equal to labor by capital. Factors, price ratio is equal to W by R, wages by R. Factors, physical ratio in A and B countries, you can understand where labor is very more, where capital is very more. The above table, labor availability in A country is very more labor availability in the B country. And this figure, right side figure, capital availability in B country is more than the capital availability in the A country. So good example, we can understand very clearly about the Schechter-Ohlin theory. Two countries are there, that is A and B. A is nothing but India, B is nothing but USA. In USA, capital is abundant and availability of labor is scarcity. Reciprocally, in India, labor is available abundant, capital is available very scarcity. Okay, so so here what is, where labor is available very much, the labor price nothing but wages are very less. Where scarcity available is very less, scarcity of capital, where in which country Okay. So availability of the factors of production is cause for the international trade here. So these slides explain the price ratios in the two countries. What is the price ratios in the two countries? In India, availability of labor is very more. So the price of labor is very less. Means wages are less or price paid to the labor is very less. Capital is very cost. So uh, in India due to scarcity. So this image, price of labor in A country is less than the price of labor in B country, and also wages in A country is less than the wages in B country. So this slide shows what is price ratios in the two country, how the prices are existed, how the prices are prevailed in the both countries to the labor and capital. So very simple it is, in where one factor production is available very much, very more plenty there. Uh, the price paid to that factors of production is very less. The price paid to that factors of production is very less, is it? So you already know that India is a huge populated country where large amount of population is existed after the China in the world. So the population is very much, availability of labor is also very much in our country. But comparing to the United States of America, very much. If you see the Japan, population is only the 12 crores, America 30 crores. You see, but India is crossed to the 130 crores. So the laborers, availability of laborers in India is very much, very much. So that India is better to use the laborers in the process of production. So okay, in India, labor is available very cheap. So India better to use the labor in the process of production. It means India should produce labor intensive good and export to United States of America and import capital intensive good where it is available, abundant and cheaper. Vice versa, nothing but vice versa. In USA, capital is available very abundant and availability of labor is very scarcity. So India should better to use the labor in the process of production. In it means India should produce the labor intensive good and export to United States of America and import the capital intensive good where it is available, abundant and cheaper. Abundant and cheaper. Okay. So by doing this kind of trade, okay, the countries can get the countries can get profits. The countries can get profit, experience the profit. Both goods are available in both countries. Very cheap rates are the less low rates, low prices. So, what extent of this theory is the consumer welfare is also going to increase with the help of this theory. Why? Because cost of production is less, prices prevail to the two goods in two countries is also less. So, demand for the good will going to increases. Where prices is less, there the welfare of the consumer will going to increase usually automatically. Is it? So with the help of this theory, the consumer welfare also going to increase. Next one, the trade in two countries is continuous until the optimum satisfaction of the availability of the factors of production. Until availability equalization of the availability of the resources or until equalization of the price of the both goods into one. According to the Excher-Ohelian, what the trade will be continue until the prices of both goods become equal in both countries. The trade will be continuous until the prices of both goods in both countries become equal. When it is possible, when the resources availability of the resources are equalized. For example, if India by using the labors is very much in the process of production, what happens, the availability of the labor will going to, the labor is available, very more rates are the more to the more wages in the long run if we demanded very much labor at present. Is it right or not? At the same time, in America, capital is available very cheaply. So now presently we are using the capital. Okay. In the long run, what happened? The demand for the capital made the rise in the price paid to the price paid to the capital. So the rate. So what happened? The resources will going to utilized in the long run largely. Okay. So this image below image states that price of labor in a country is equal to the price of labor in B country, and price of capital in A country is equal to the price of capital in B country, and wages paid in A country is equal to the wages paid in the B country, and rate of interest paid in the A country is equal to the rate of interest paid in B country. So this is a theory of Echter-Wohelian international trade theory. Okay, thank you.